had another thought that I wanted to share with you. It concerns how some churches here in Canada are insisting on being open despite the fact that they exist in these hotspots throughout our country. In particular, there's 3 churches in BC that recently were fined by the British Columbia government for being open in defiance of the restrictions that have been put in place for their regions. And they gave those 3 churches, from the information that I gathered, they gave 3 reasons that I really want to talk about today. 2 are interesting, and I hear it a lot, and then the third one is something a little bit deeper. So the first reason these churches gave was that if liquor stores can be open, churches should be able to be open. Right off the top of my head, I say, if you're operating your church the same way somebody is operating a liquor store, you're operating your church in such a manner that it really requires your immediate attention and reflection on whether or not you're doing it right. A liquor store is a retail outlet, okay? If the liquor store is open but the grocery store is closed, you might have an argument there. There might be something for you to think on. There might be something for you to challenge. If the liquor store is open but the bakery is closed, there might be an argument, there might be a challenge. The church and the liquor store offer 2 completely different products in 2 completely different fashions. Whenever I go to a liquor store, I got a pretty good idea what I want when I get in there, or at least a reason why I'm going. So I go, I get in, I do whatever shopping I have to do, and I leave. I don't find myself in a liquor store, no matter how big it is, no matter how many sample booths they have set up. I don't find myself in a liquor store for an hour or 2 at a time. I don't find myself in there talking with people. I don't find myself in there to learn. I don't find myself in there to listen to people teach. I'm not in there to connect. I'm not in there for confession and absolution. I'm not in there for the Eucharist. I might be in there for a bottle of wine, but I'm not in there for a long period of time that's supposed to fill me emotionally and spiritually. And yeah, I know there's probably at least one joke out there when it involves spirits. The second reason they gave was God is bigger than COVID-19. And on this, I will say absolutely, God is much bigger than COVID-19. And God's church is not going to succumb to COVID-19. You're right, God is bigger. But that doesn't mean God's going to personally intervene in your life to keep you and the people in your church safe. There are millions and millions and millions of Christians who, since Jesus was born, have died because of pandemics and viruses. Remember, God gave us all a brain. He gave us all the ability to reason. And God gave us a world filled with people who are here to look after us, to guide us, to teach us, to take care of us, to keep us healthy, to give us guidance and wisdom. Our brain should be used to listen to those people and recognize that maybe God's church, maybe your church, maybe my church is going to survive not in spite of the virus because of God's direct intervention, but it's going to survive because we've listened to the people around us. The third reason they gave is that we have to go to church. The Bible tells us we have to go to church. God demands us to go to church. And so by telling us we can't go to church, you're actually stepping on our religious freedoms. First of all, the New Testament is filled with places where it says we should go to church for one reason or another. We should go to church. We should gather together in worship. We should gather together as community. We should gather together and share. We should gather together to mutually support one another. It's filled with examples. All right? There are too many for me to bring up in an 8 or 9 minute video. But we've got to understand a couple of things. So the first thing is that church is a gift. It's not meant to be a duty. It's not meant to be a responsibility. Whenever a gift becomes something that you must do, when a gift becomes something that you must receive, it stops being a gift. It now becomes the source of resentment. And I can tell you from my own denomination's tradition, that the minute you enforce it on people that they have to go to church, when they get to that age where they decide whether or not they want to go, they do not want to go. Because you forced it on them. You never gave them the choice. Right? You never allowed them to experience it as a gift. You never allowed them to experience it as something that they get to do, as opposed to something they have to do. So going back to the statement that we have to go to church, the second thing I would say is, let's remember exactly what church is. It's the gathering of people to share their faith. It's the gathering of people to share in mission. It's the gathering of people to share time of worship, time of prayer, time of learning. It's gathering of people. And we live in such a wonderful place of technology that we don't have to gather in person anymore. Now, if you look at the ancient church, especially during the time of Nero, when they were under persecution of being killed, of being arrested and thrown into the arena, of being arrested and used as street lamps to light the streets of Rome, what they did was they went underground. They recognized that they had an enemy out there that was desperately trying to kill them. And so they went underground. They broke up their larger churches and they began meeting in small groups. They began meeting in ways that people wouldn't assume it's a religious activity. They began meeting in ways that kept their identity hidden, a secret. They recognized that for them to survive as Christians, they couldn't make a public display anymore. Now, make no mistake, I'm not saying the government here in Canada or in the US is your enemy. They're not. They're not the ones who are trying to destroy you. The one who is literally trying to destroy you is COVID-19. And the battle that you're fighting is what COVID-19 is doing to your community. So take a lesson from the ancient church, find alternative ways of gathering together. There are alternatives for us to use that will keep us safe and keep our neighbors safe. Church is a gift. Treat it as such. Find ways of sharing it. Find ways of receiving the gift that are different, an alternative to maybe the way you're used to doing it. I know this is a difficult message for some out there to hear. And as a pastor in a church, as the rector of Christchurch Shelburne, it's something that we've juggled here. It's something that we've had to work with. But when this time is over, come together again. Come together in mission. Come together in worship. Come together teaching and learning. Come together for the sacrament. Embrace all that church is. See it as the gift that it truly is. Maybe right now, this is the cross we need to bear. This is the sacrifice we need to make for the people around us. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, and may you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. I pray you'd be willing to pick up this cross. I pray you'd be willing to carry it. I pray you'd be willing to pay this price so that when it's all over, we can come back together and we can be the church the world needs us to be. Amen.